This just in, an incredible newspaper report from the amazing Nassim and Lexi F. In this edition, we cover a rather intriguing topic that our world faces, globalization.
But there's only one problem. Is globalization good or bad for the world?
That's where we come in. But first, let's go over some definitions to help us with the concept of globalization.
First of all, there's outsourcing. Outsourcing is when American firms make an effort to lower costs by raising and consulting with other countries for the labor to manufacture goods and produce services, or by building factories and research facilities in other countries. For example, an American firm that sells shoes has all of the labor needed to manufacture the shoes done in China, where it is later shipped back to the US to be put on the market for sale.
Next, we have free trade, which is trade without the use of any trade barriers such as a quota, embargo, or tariff.
A developed nation is one in which has a government fully set in wealth.
And just the opposite of a developed nation is a developing nation, which is a nation that is still in the process of planning its government.
Next, we have sustainability, the state of keeping an environment balanced by exporting and importing goods in such a way that it doesn't harm the environment.
And last, but definitely not the least, is globalization, the worldwide exchange of goods, services, and ideas.
It all sounds pretty good, but globalization does have some negative effects as well as positive effects.
Yes, but first, let's take a look at the positive effects. First of all, trade and wealth have been increasing in countries all over the world. Also, new ideas are spreading. Our world will never run out of ideas.
Because of globalization, migration is increasing. Adding to that, investment is increasing as well as migration. Lastly, our generation is much better off than it used to be. During the good old days, well, things weren't as good as they are now. The amount of resources that our generation has is way more than the older generations.
Although globalization does have some negative effects. One negative effect is that diversity between humans is slowly vanishing due to all of the culture blending that is taking place. Also, global languages are being created, so some cultures are losing their traditions.
One of the worst effects of globalization is the amount of damage that it is doing to our environment. Globalization is probably the worst cause of global warming.
Because of technological developments, globalization has increased over the years. Personally, we believe that globalization is more good than bad, but we still do realize the negative effects of globalization. We believe that globalization increases wealth and raises a country's GDP. Adding to that, globalization has given our generation advantages such as more job opportunities. Although there is negative effects of globalization, such as causing many jobs to be lost. During globalization, the amount of food in the population increased because of the resources being traded all over the world.
The amount of food and the population have been starting to raise during globalization. This is a positive effect. As an effect of globalization, cultures start to blend during trade and outsourcing. This is good and bad. It is a positive effect because it brings the world closer and more intent. But culture blending has slowly started changing the culture's traditions over time.
An example of culture blending is that India is slowly starting to seem more and more like America due to globalization. Many American brands such as Starbucks, KFC, and Apple have started to appear around the world.
Globalization increases trade around the world, which is good. Trade increases specialization in countries, which raises the GDP of the country worldwide. Although, with lots of trade comes lots of air pollution, which is not good for the environment.
Globalization has different effects on developing countries and developed countries. In developing countries, more jobs are available, the citizens are supported, and it helps the country develop even more. In developed countries, more natural resources are imported and the GDP raises. But in both types of countries, globalization does damage the environment.
Natural resources are very valuable, but every country does not have all of the natural resources to support its country. Therefore, we have to trade around the world to get natural resources that we need. This does damage the environment and increase global warming.
Globalization has also had a positive impact on women's rights, although in some countries women still do not have full rights.
Here is a globalization quote. If you're totally illiterate and living on $1 a day, the benefits of globalization never come to you. By Jimmy Carter.
Here are the sources that we use to complete our newspaper.
And this concludes our Globalization edition. Globalization, good or bad? By Nassim and Lexi F. Thanks for watching!